Man, you've got a crazy ass story.
Well, it seems to have resonated quite a bit. I've gotten overwhelmingly positive feedback from, I mean, in particular, the law enforcement community.
Yeah,
The entire department over there seems to have, now that everything has come out, everybody sees, the truth of what happened. I've gotten a lot of support, so I'm very blessed. And
that's awesome.
yeah, and law enforcement officers across the country, this has resonated because this type of stuff, this politics thing, you can ignore politics all you want, but one day it's not going to ignore you.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have had similar experiences.
Introduce you. Your name's Carl Anderson, and you're a former police officer for the North Miami Beach Police Department.
Yes, sir. I'm an honorably retired police captain from the North Miami Beach Police Department. I did about 17 and a half years. Had a lot of experience. Most of it was on patrol. Got along with all my coworkers. Everybody knew who I was. They knew what I was all about as an officer and as a supervisor. I uh, I I play by the rules. I do things by the book, and I expect the people under my watch to do the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've gotten along with everybody. Nobody had ever had a problem with me throughout my entire career. We're talking nearly 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah. 17 years is a long, long time
Yeah,
to be in one profession, let alone one job.
yeah.
Uh, and first of all, thank you for your service. And you did a kind of a documentary about your experiences with the North Miami Beach Police Department towards the end of your career. And what really struck me about the your documentary was the emotion that you captured in man, that must have been a very surreal experience to go through and, having everybody look at you, almost trying to gaslight you and make you feel like you're crazy. And like you knew you were doing the right thing, but everybody around you was telling you, no, no, we don't like you, and that must have been incredibly difficult to deal with.
It was a shocker to me, because like I said previously, I've gotten along with every single person that I ever worked with. Even if there was some friction at some point between me and somebody else, hey, we'd hash it out. We'd speak about it man to man. And, because look, the truth is in law enforcement, particularly at like a smaller agency like where I was at, these are your family members. Okay. You spend
Yeah.
more time shoulder to shoulder with these people beside you than you do with your own family in many instances. So the last thing I ever wanted was any friction or, like people people catch beef all the time. Oh, you said something to me that I didn't like. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's go have a beer and hash it out. That's the way these things
Open
usually work.
open dialogue. Yeah. And we don't there's no need to be mean to each other. If we disagree, then that's what that dialogue is about, to share our opinions without maliciousness.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And as you said, based on the whole experience, it was really shocking to me how everything unfolded. But it was. Let me rephrase that. This was the worst case scenario that in the back of my mind I was preparing for. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you saw in the documentary, I kept receipts. Okay.
Yeah.
And because unfortunately, this seems to be the culture that we live in now. This is the society that we live in where you have to walk on eggshells, especially with like people that apparently had problems with me. I had no idea that anybody had problems with me. Um, but yeah, so the documentary was basically my brother and I, after my retirement, saying, "Hey, you know, this is a pretty crazy story. Nobody believes me when I tell it to them, and it's such a convoluted story too. To
Yeah.
go from point A to B to C to D and F. It was really hard to kind of encapsulate what everything was. So I was talking to my brother. I said, "Well, everything's public record. I have these documents. No attorney wants to look into the case for me. Um, and I think we thought that this was a story that would resonate with people, particularly that are dealing with similar type of bureaucratic nonsense in other government agencies, particularly in law enforcement. So the way it went down was stuck a camera in my face, put up a couple lights. I said what I had to say. I gave all the footage over to my brother. My brother compiled all of the, I gave him all the footage and I gave him all the receipts and everything. He compiled all of the other evidence. I told him where to look, and together, mostly through him, he did all the editing. But it would be in multiple sessions. He and I would go through and fine tune it, and then we created Unbecoming.
That's awesome, man. And I really love the did you guys have to use the Freedom of Information Act at all?
No, I everything I had from the council meeting clips, those are all available
No
online.
kidding.
From my investigation, I had all the documents. I kept all the emails. I kept all the files that I knew were going to be associated with this. And yeah, so we didn't
I'm
have to
glad
do.
you did that.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I suspected that I'm going to have a lawsuit on my hands based on the way
Yeah.
I was treated. So I needed to have the receipts. Um, but yeah, so all praise goes to my brother Christian, who really, I mean, the countless hours upon hours of honing that thing and making it into what it was, and we're
He's
very proud of it.
actually he's actually how I found you, man.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know who Julian Dory or Julian Dory podcast.
Yeah, that's an alien guy, right?
Well,
Or whatever.
sorta.
Okay.
Sorta. He does all kinds of things, but he does a lot of that stuff. But I was watching a live because it was right after. Oh hell, I can't even remember what he was doing, but he was doing a live show, and I just happened to be watching, and your brother Christian had reached out and threw up $5 in the chat and told Julian Dory to go check out your.
Guerrilla marketing right there.
Yeah, exactly, and it's very effective because let me
Yeah.
tell you, you got a couple subscribers out of it. So
I,
yeah, I was listening to that, and as soon as I switched it off, I went checked out your documentary, and man, very very well put together, and very professional. The way you told your story, it was not malicious in any way. You were just talking and telling your story as you saw it to be, and like you said, you kept receipts. And the name of the documentary is Unbecoming. And anybody who's listening or watching, you can find it on Carl Anderson's YouTube channel. And it's, like I said, the documentary is called Unbecoming. And without going too much into, because I do want to, I do want people to watch the documentary. I want them to watch the entire story from beginning to end because it is so. I know lots of people that are not law enforcement that can identify with your story, and it is very, very frustrating. Uh, it's almost like a harassment at a whole different level. It's these some of these people were talking about hostile work environment, and that's exactly what you were living in.
yeah.
And without going too much into the documentary, can you just give a kind of a brief go over of your story and what happened?
Sure. Sure. So I'll start by saying somebody left a comment on the documentary on the YouTube channel. Said I got Eddie Gallagher, and at the time I had heard the name, but I wasn't familiar with the story. But I looked into it, and a recommendation came up on my YouTube channel where it talked about Eddie Gallagher, and I think he was. I want to say he was Navy SEALs, could have been some other special forces, but basically he experienced the same thing. He was tasked with instilling order among a group of basically the bad news bears, essentially. Just some like a scene out of any sports comedy movie. You got the head coach brought in to bring this ragtag group of lovable misfits together and shape them up, kind
Yeah.
of something similar like that. But in his case, they mutinied and they got him court-martialed and arrested. He was framed for murder, and so much worse than I got it. Okay, like I got off easy compared to this guy, but it was a similar concept. I was tasked as a veteran police sergeant to deal with a bunch of uh, you know rookies that were a bit rough around the edges, I should say. And part of the reason they were like that, I can go into it, but the the field training program, had kind of taken a slide. The standards were really not up to snuff, and the political environment was such that there was a lot of turnover. So this particular group of rookies, they did not like being held accountable. Okay, and when I say held accountable, you talk to anybody that I had ever supervised. Okay, I'm a very straight. If there's a problem, if there's a if there's a situation that we need to deal with, I'm going to fix it with a conversation. If there's any type of fallout from your mistake or something like that, then unfortunately it's out of my hands. But my goal was never to, you know, like ride these guys. I wanted to make sure that the job was getting done, and couple that with the pressure that I was getting from my administration, who was telling me, you need to get these guys in line. So, okay, I understand the assignment. Okay, so I did the job to the best of my abilities. I coached these guys. I told them, hey, you messed this up. We got to fix this. We got to do that. Tried not to ding them unnecessarily, because I was a young officer too. Like, look, you need to understand too. We ask a lot of our young cops. Okay, we take some 19-year-old off the street. We give him a badge and a gun. We say, go figure it out. And keep him. His frontal lobes haven't even fully developed in his brain yet. Okay,
Yeah.
he is the center of his own universe. There's so much growth to do at that point, and part of that growth comes from having a no nonsense supervisor. And that's how my head was surgically removed from my ass when I was a young officer.
Mine
Was
too.
strong leadership. Okay, yeah, it's a tale as old as time. It is like it's a rite of passage. There's a natural hierarchy to things, and these are just things that every young guy obviously is gonna try to buck the system. I get it; it's natural, but yeah. So some of these guys really didn't care for my leadership style. That is to say, like uh, they didn't like being held accountable, and a group of them decided that they were going to organize a mass complaint campaign against me. And
Organize. I think the word you're looking for is conspire. They
yeah, well,
conspired.
you can be the judge because all the information is there. I think the evidence clearly shows that yes, this was conspired, or that these guys conspired to organize a mutiny and basically tell lies about me to get in trouble to my administration.
And the truth
And
that they told was greatly exaggerated. And all these receipts are in the documentary. I implore everybody to check this out because it is so ridiculous.
so, one instance that I'll give you is that these officers were claiming that I was forcing them to make an illegal arrest. Their words, okay, that I was ordering them to violate somebody's Fourth Amendment rights by doing an illegal arrest. Okay, now that's pretty crazy to me because I am a constitutional absolutist. Okay, when it comes to the Constitution, when it comes to any of the amendments, I am the champion of all of them. Okay, so that turned out to be complete bunk. It turned out that these guys were just either seriously uninformed or lazy or both. And that particular incident, you can watch the body cam and you can make your own determination as to what happened with that. And that's in the documentary. So rather than using an ounce, a modicum of common sense to call me, And once I heard about the allegations, I was on top of it. I'm like, I know how this game is played. Let me call the chief. Hey, that my intention was, hey chief, this is what I said. And she could have either said, yeah, yeah, I get it. Probably don't say that again. Okay, no problem. Okay. But nobody wanted to hear me. Okay. And everybody who had worked with me, keep in mind, I've been there for the better part of 2 decades. People know who I am. They know what I'm all about. They know I'm a nerd. Okay. And nobody wanted to listen to my story. They'd rather take the story from these snot-nosed, know-nothing rookies who haven't even earned their keep yet over my interpretation of the sequence of events. So what did they do? They immediately relieved me of duty and stripped my badge and my gun and sent me home for a month for an internal affairs investigation to come out. I should probably get into, obviously they said I was a racist,
Yeah.
is what you do in 2024. So what they did, they claimed, so I'll get into the comment that I made that gave them, that caused them to make the assertion that I was a racist. We were talking about a use of force incident. This particular use of force was pretty messy, and it became messy simply due to a lack of communication between the officers at the time. Simple communication could have easily fixed the problem. And I talk about uses of forces all the time. That's a really hot button issue right now going
Yeah.
on in the world of law enforcement. And I routinely bring training into my roll calls. I show videos. Like, I want these guys to learn vicariously through the dumb decisions from other cops. Okay, like all the body cam footage is all out on YouTube. You can learn a lot, and you can Monday morning, not out of malice, but you can Monday morning quarterback things and say, hey, let's do, if something like this happens, let's approach it at this angle to hopefully avoid the pitfalls that they encountered. So when I was discussing the use of force, and I'm a nerd, okay, and the field of evolutionary psychology is something that I really care a lot about. I am the son of two retired evolutionary biology professors, so I have nerd cred, okay? And essentially what I said was, I said that you guys need to be careful, because at the end of the day, we're all just a bunch of hairless monkeys who've evolved to hunt something down and kill it. Okay,
Which is true.
which is true. Okay, and it was essentially a Joe Roganism, is
Yeah.
how I would describe it. Right? It is a it is collective self-deprecation, saying that we are fallible human beings that will act on instinct in many cases. And it was an acknowledgement of an instinct. Like, how often do we see police footage where some guy, from you're watching a police car chase, and then they yank the guy out and the officers are grabbing him, and then some dumb idiot runs along and kicks the guy in the head, in front of all the camera. Like, this is just, this is an instinct. It's the same instinct that when you watch an MMA fight and you see a knockout, does the guy who knocked the other guy out just stop punching him, or does a referee need to grab him and pull him off? Okay, these are things that you learn, like you learn about yourself when you're in these high stress environments, that, hey, something just clicks, a switch flips on, and we need to prepare ourselves for those types of violent interactions. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was what the comment was meant to convey. Okay, but these officers, and it wasn't even the black officers, it was two Hispanics and a white guy, saying that comment was clearly racist, because for whatever reason they associate a particular group of people with that word, which is just so stupid.
It says more about them than it does you, to be honest.
Yeah, and and anybody who's worked with me will tell you the same thing. Which is why it was so frustrating and so, like, mind numbing that they couldn't just ask me, and I could have given them the receipts automatically, But
Yeah.
it appeared, just based on the culture that was going on over there politically, it seemed like what was done to me was done to make some kind of example out of me for being a racist boogeyman. And, the truth is, and everybody will say it, that what happened to me would not have happened if I was any other flavor of human being. Okay.
Right.
It was because I'm a white guy. All right. And that
Are
much is
you
obvious.
married?
I have a long term girlfriend.
You should have told him you're gay.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Or I should have transitioned the moment I learned that the chief wasn't going to answer my phone calls. I probably should have transitioned, but, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right?
Hindsight's a bitch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I
So,
just I find it difficult to understand those type of things because I mean this wasn't that long ago. This was what, like a year and a half ago,
yeah, yeah,
and it seems to be getting worse, man. It seems the more
I,
they cater to the young people, it's, and I don't want to be disparaging against young people because not all young people are like this, but it seems like they can't go along to get along. They got to ruffle feathers, and if things aren't the way they think they should be, and understandably, some of them get mad because the system is sometimes rigged against us, but that's the system that we live in. And instead of educating themselves to make it better, they seem to be part of the problem.
what I look, I have a lot of empathy in my heart for especially these young guys because I was a young guy, so I
Yeah.
can relate. You know, Nobody's ever going to be able to afford a house again on a cop's salary. Okay, I've watched this profession that I love become basically just another job. You know, Particularly at the agency that I was working at, there was this, and there still is this institutional apathy. People just don't care anymore, and which is fine. Like you work however hard you want to work, but the bare minimum has to get accomplished. Like being a hard worker in law enforcement is optional. Okay, there's no really like if you chase the bad guy and you catch the bad guy, you'll get an attaboy, you'll get a little award, something. But there's no disincentive to not catch the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then you have an environment where people are constantly doing the bare minimum, skirting that line, and you know, like just avoiding doing their job at all costs. And then the working guy seeing this, and he's like, "Hey, this idiot just, he just half-assed that call. Why am I going to put in?" And it's contagious. Okay, that
Yeah.
type of attitude. And thankfully, we have a system in place to prevent that type of stuff. It's called our policies and procedures. Okay, and I am not a stickler. Like our policies and procedures are like driving. They're like a traffic infraction. We all get in our car, we drive, a couple miles a day. You're going to commit 10 traffic violations by the time you get where you need to go. Okay. Our policies and procedures are the same way. And we need to triage like what's important to us. Okay. I don't care if, like, all I need is the job to be done. I don't need you to be rude to the citizens. I don't need you to wreck your car. I don't like these are, you know, it was the basic bare minimum amount of standards that I was asking for. I was not writing. I'm a very reasonable guy.
And
Okay.
taking
And I don't,
taking
but
responsibility. Just
yes,
something as simple as taking responsibility. It's okay. We're big people now. You're nobody's going to spank you and take away your birthday. Like there was one example in the documentary. It was like one of the first examples that you talked about that it was about taking responsibility for an accident on a vehicle. Well, the policies and procedures were that they do a report and they're like, well, that I don't want to do a report because that's taken responsibility. They should have taken responsibility. It was the car was under their care.
yeah. And, an argument could be made on that particular incident. Maybe there was pre existing damage that just somehow manifested itself months after this guy had been issued the vehicle. Maybe that's a possibility. Okay. Is it likely? Probably not. But I'm willing to grant that that probably happened. But the damage of the vehicle was so extensive. Like we're talking, this guy's transmission fluid was just puking out in our parking lot. Okay. So my captain was saying, hey, I don't, whatever he hit, it must not be far. So I want you to check the surrounding areas to see if you find anything. And God help this kid if I did find something and I found video of it and he wanted to keep his story. So me saying, hey, look, are you sure you didn't hit anything? Okay. We forget things all the time. Are you sure? That was me saying, hey, man, just on the off chance that I do find something, you're going to get jammed up even worse if you lie about it. Okay.
Yeah, it's better
So
to be honest now.
I thought I was doing the guy a favor. Okay. But he got all butthurt about it, you know, and look, who knows what happened to the car? Okay. You saw the email and you saw the report. Okay. If that's his story, fine. Okay. But me doing him a solid and saying, hey, look, this captain that's been breathing down my neck, for the better part of a year is telling me to go find where you wrecked your car. And I might find it because I'm a pretty good cop. So just so you know. So yeah, that was one of the examples that you brought up. And these guys, they think they've stumbled, they think they've invented the scam in this job, which is hilarious to me because they think they've discovered something new about, like I invented every scam in the book. Okay. And I know, like, with the amount of time that I've been doing this job, I know when people are lying to me. I know where they go to try to sleep for an hour or two on midnights. Like I see everything. Okay. And I've been there. I've played the game and I'm a lot better at it than you are. Okay. And these guys
I think you know how you were saying that you remember being that young person,
yeah.
right? I think these young people these days kind of forget that we were those young people.
Oh, for sure. Without a
And
doubt.
yeah, like you just said, like, you know all the spots where they go and hide for an hour or two and do this or do that, and the best places to stop in town for coffee, and those things because you've been around this, around the block a time or two, and they forget those things. They see you in an office, right? And they don't think that, well, this guy never leaves the office or he doesn't do this, or you know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing too. I was not an office dweller. I was out there getting into the shit with them a lot of
Yeah.
cases too. Okay, and I tried to watch what kind of calls I was responding to too, just in case because I didn't want to see something that I didn't want to see. So but I was in it with them. Okay, I paid my dues. I played this game on hard mode, is what I tell people. Okay, doing patrol for the better part of 2 decades is playing this game on hard mode, and I love patrol. Okay, the freedom that you get, I love interacting with people, and I love, I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. I think in my profession, a lot of these guys, they have this us versus them mentality. I see that a lot, and I saw it in myself. And I think it's completely natural too, because you think about like the police academy, you think about training. These guys are watching videos of cops getting shot in the face on traffic stops, screaming at the top of their, like, it's traumatic. Okay. They're exposed to this shit all the time. And that obviously, like, it's meant to prepare you for what's out there, of course.
Yeah.
But you disassociate and you think everybody out there is a villain. You think everybody out there is the bad guy. You think everybody out there is trying to kill you. And yeah, you probably should act like that, but you should also try to be professional and try to, like, nobody likes us right now. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention. Nobody likes cops right now. And that's a problem. Okay. And I believe that the only way to fix that is by one professional interaction at a time. And I'm the type of guy that if somebody, whether I'm out and people say, if they figure out that I'm a cop, a lot of cops be like, oh, I don't want to talk to the normies. They can't relate. I don't want to hang out with anybody that's not a cop. It's a very natural phenomenon that happens in this job. But you live in a bubble and you live in your own echo chamber, and you haven't sharpened your blade enough to debate some people that have really stupid ideas about this job. Okay, I love debating. That is my bread and butter. If I'm at a bar somewhere and somebody says something silly about why didn't that cop shoot the guy, that axe wielding maniac in the leg, I can easily answer that question for people. And I think we need to reform our image, and we need to reform the public's image of this job, because the public is used to Marvel movies. They're used to, they're used to like Star Wars, and they see all this fantastical stuff, and they have a warped perception of what reality really is, especially when you're dealing with some of the most dangerous things you can deal with in the world. Okay, like the world on our side, on the cop side, it looks a lot different to people that really don't experience what we've experienced. They don't smell the things that we've had to smell. They don't see the despair and the agony of people who are really having the worst days in their life. So I wish a lot of people would try to have a little more empathy with cops. But I think cops could do a much better job engaging in dialogue with people, because they see it as a fruitless endeavor.
Well, I think there is a separation between administration and the boots on the ground, for a lack of a better term. There's so in the administrations are playing politics. You can't play politics on the street. The streets don't care if you're right, left, or center. They don't care about race or color or creed. Um, and that's a difficult line to walk. And I'm sure you saw as your transition from the patrol to administration side that it's a whole different animal. It gets political when you go inside that building.
Well, my answer to that, and it's a complex answer, and I can only speak from my experience at my agency. I was only at one agency, but I suspect that it's similar at other places. There appears to be a caste system, an administrative caste system, that for whatever, I don't know how it works, I don't know the inner workings, I don't that like this is, but some people that you work alongside, that anybody in their right mind would understand that they would never belong in a leadership positions or in a leadership position, are the first people to get the leadership positions. And I don't know why it happens. The first
Man, they
people
fake
that,
it till they make it. You touched
yeah,
a little onto it. You didn't come out and say it in the documentary, but you touched on it a little bit with the former, or with the chief. I don't know if she's still chief.
I don't know either. I've heard rumors, but it's,
You did touch on it a little bit, like the experience wasn't there, and it was like there was an agenda in some spots.
yeah.
I think a lot of them people just fake it till they make it because they're trying to get that paycheck.
I mean, and that's unfortunately true. And once you ascend to that level, and don't get me wrong, there were some administrators there that they played the game on hard mode too. They understand. They never forgot where they came from. But in many cases, those guys are stifled because nobody wants to lose their cushy gig. No one wants to lose all those zeros on their paycheck. So what do? They see something silly and they decide, I got to choose my battles. I'm not going to fight this one. And in many cases, like what happened to me, that was the result, because everybody saw that what happened to me was like, it was unprecedented. The way I was treated in that department, no, in the history of that agency, nobody had ever been subjected to similar treatment. Okay. And all the administrators, at least the ones that would come up to me, said, Karl, this is bullshit. And we're on your side. This is, we're doing everything we can, but we all know that this is bullshit. And, we got your back. Okay. But when the rubber really met the road and the chief ordered everybody to like nod their heads up and down and basically acquiesce to her silly nonsense, they did. And it's easy to understand why they didn't put up a fight, because it's not their neck that's on. Like, I don't owe anybody anything, or no, I'm sorry, nobody owes me anything. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just a regular dude, so nobody stuck their neck out for me.
Yeah, it's for me, I wouldn't be able to do it just because I got a family. I have a family depending on that paycheck, and that's essentially what it boils down to is they take a risk losing their job
Yep.
for a
Or being
friend.
called.
Yeah, and it's hard because I'm the type of guy who would do everything I'm kind of like you in the aspect that I don't play the bullshit game.
Yeah.
I'm honest. I prefer to go into something head first and deal with it as it comes at me. I'm a consistent rule breaker, but that's like we're very similar in thinking. I didn't go the law enforcement way. I went the opposite direction. I had a rough go of things in my early adulthood, but
Who says
I
I
think
did it?
well,
Just the other
fair
side.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that the difficulty lies in that is that I'm so honest that I could I, I would try to find a way to manipulate the situation from the inside out and but there was no way in this situation because you're dealing with internal affairs, you're dealing with your squad, your crew, that your coworkers, and you're also dealing with a leadership outside of that as well. And I mean, the chief's got bosses too, and they're most of the time mayors and governors and stuff like that. So that kind of situation is really difficult. And that's why I said it must have been very surreal to go through that. Like, oh man, I can't believe this is happening. What the hell do I do? What is, what's going to happen next? You were relieved of duty at a certain point, right?
Yeah. Uh,
And
I want to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it just seemed like if you were pulled away from that service at that moment and how surreal that must have felt and how awful that must have felt deep down inside because you feel powerless. And I wouldn't be able to stand up because I have a family. But then what about you? What about your paycheck? What about your home? What about your family? It just, damn
Yeah.
it, it's one of those things that like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I want to talk a bit about, you know, my. I want to talk about honesty in this profession and following the rules. Part of my look, we already covered this. I got hired when I was 21 years old. Okay, like I got hired 5 days after my 21st birthday. I didn't know anything about the world. Okay, and my understanding of police work was what I saw in the movies. You chase the bad guys, beat up the bad guys, and that's that. Okay, and I learned the hard way that no, it's not exactly like that. Um, and I learned based on strong leadership, based on a guiding hand from people that were senior to me and had played, but some cases, had to chew my ass out like really hard. That hurt my feelings. But you learn as you go that these guys are the ones that actually care about you. These are the ones that actually give a shit about you. The people that look the other way and try, they're setting you up for failure. But I learned early in my career that and I would see other guys cutting corners that I wouldn't have cut, phrasing things in a way that I wouldn't have phrased them. And I learned that I had to master the rules. And if I was ever going to break the rules, I was going to break them because that was the right thing to do in any particular situation. You master the rules, and then you break them gracefully because you understand the rules. So it was that, environment that I grew up in, or yeah, that I came up in at the department, that really shaped my outlook on how I do my job. Am I
Old
probably
school.
old school, but with a modern twist, because I
Yeah.
see what's happening in the culture, and I have things I want to say about it. I have contributions to the conversation that I think are valuable. But yeah, the you know I was never allowed to break the rules the way I saw some other people break the rules, and that's why I got promoted. At least that's why I thought I got promoted. I, and speaking of that, to talk about kind of the administrative salvo that was happening, I was promoted under to kind of dive back into the documentary. I didn't really cover a lot of this, but I was hired by a chief named Chief Rand, okay, in February of 20. No, I was promoted by Chief Rand in February of 2022. Yeah. A few months later, he was out. And then this new chief, this junior captain who had never been a cop, was then promoted to the chief. I had never had any type of I had never had really any serious disciplinary action throughout my entire career. Yeah, I messed some things up and I had to take my medicine, but nothing you know, nothing serious. As soon as that chief left that promoted me, everything started coming down on me. Oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not out of nowhere. And it was asymmetrical too, because none of the other sergeants were being asked to check the same boxes as me. And in my case, it was with the other sergeant that was on my shift. And, you look into this however you want, but the only sergeants that had ever been faced with discipline in that place in living memory were all white guys. And as a matter of fact, there were only 4 white guys on that were patrol sergeants. So many people have pointed that out to me. I don't know what to make of it, but it was interesting to say the least.
I've noticed that quite a bit too in not like I'm not in law enforcement and have never been a part of law enforcement, but a lot of DEI hires everywhere.
I, I try
Everywhere.
I try not to get. Obviously, we all have our political opinions. Obviously, we see what's happening in the culture. I I know that DEI, that word, is going to trigger a lot of people, and they're going to call you racist. But as far as race goes, you need to understand. I'm not. What state are you in?
Missouri.
Missouri. Okay, I'm in Miami. All right. I am, for all intents and purposes, the minority in South Florida. Okay, I grew up being the minority. I have I've had a very mixed upbringing. My friends are my friends because we share the same values. I Many cases their families don't even speak English, but I click with who I click with.
Oh, I,
So
I see what you're saying. So you would be the DEI hire.
it's essentially, I mean,
Okay.
maybe, yeah, but so I never saw the world, and this is just a product of my environment growing up in South Florida. I never looked at the world through a racial lens. I
Yeah.
didn't have any white friends. My friends are from Colombia, Barbados, Cuba, Venezuela. Like my girlfriend's Colombian. I've never had. That's why it was so absurd to me that I was being labeled a racist. I'm like, I'm the one white guy. What are the odds that the one white guy that you have, like one of the few white guys that you have, is the racist? Like, come on, like that's silly. But but yeah, it was, it's obvious that this all happened and they said what they said because I was a different flavor human being than they were. And I
Yeah.
happen to, it seems to be fashionable to, not like white straight males anymore.
Yeah, and that's a fairly new phenomenon. The last 20 years has been a wild ride to say the least. I think we're similar in age. I'm 39. How old are you?
39, just turned 39.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've seen over the last 20 years it go from actually being racist to being almost reverse racism at times. I live near Kansas City, so it's predominantly white here still, but it's we live near a melting pot,
Yeah.
and so I'm no stranger to diversity, but I do see a lot of advancements of careers that shouldn't be advanced just because it's we're supposed to be a meritocracy. It's supposed to be the best man for the job, and I do see that quite a bit more in the last 20 years than I could ever imagine. And it has been pointed out to me, like other people seeing it from the inside out. Now it's like when these instances of workplace, almost workplace harassment, or you could consider that a hostile work environment yourself, but like you chose to handle it differently. Like, I see that a lot more, and I don't know what to think of it because it's not we have as people haven't changed. I don't know if it's social media or what's going on with that.
Of course, it's social media. Everybody's limbic system has been hijacked by this little demonic black mirror, and I think, whether you want to talk about politics or cancel culture or just anything, I think, yeah, like, if you heard the phrase "touch grass," people need to go touch grass.
I say it all
It's
the time, brother.
basically yeah, and I think we've kind of found ourselves chronically online. A lot of people, and they've lost touch with reality and the real world. And I think it causes people to go into these like digital tribal enclaves where they only talk to people who think like them and or look like them or whatever type of affiliation they feel that they want to align themselves with. And I think it's dangerous. And I was never worried about it in South Florida because, like, especially as cops, like, here's what you need to understand too. I've worked with every race. I've worked with every gender. I've worked with people in the LGBT community. Like, you name it, I've worked alongside them, and we've gotten along great. And
Yeah,
that's
Miami's a
because,
very progressive place.
well, I wouldn't even call it progressive. I mean, we're a red county, like
Yeah, but
politically, but
it's a very diverse place in that you can find a lot of people. Just it's a massive place, a lot of
right.
people.
And when it comes to this job in particular, law enforcement, it's always kind of been understood that regardless of where you came from or what you look like or what color your skin is, we as cops, we our just being cops together creates more of a bond than any tribal affiliation that you can think of. Because the shit that you're going to get into with each other, these people that are sitting alongside you, these people that got your back, that is going to drive you a lot closer together, like as a family in many senses. That's going to bring you so much more closer than any other immutable characteristic. And so it's always been that our bond together as cops transcends the normie political bullshit that everybody else is hung up on.
Yeah, yeah, I see that.
But
So did you serve in the military at all?
I did not. No,
Okay, neither did
no.
I.
Yeah,
I just saw the American flag behind you, and it just occurred to me to ask.
no, I didn't. My mom was in the Navy, and my older brother became a cop when I was 10 years old, And I had always wanted to be a cop, like, just based on I was propagandized by all the great movies, all the great cop movies.
Me too.
Yeah, and I that was the route that I wanted to take. So I kind of set my sights for that. There was some flirting with the idea of going to the Air Force when I failed one of the tests for but I was able to get her done with the help and encouragement of my family. I was able to get in very early into law enforcement, and yeah, I couldn't
Well,
be more grateful.
thank you for your service, man. 17 years is a long, long time. And
But thank you. I mean, it's earlier than I would have liked. I had another 2.5 to go, and I had some big plans for that place, but apparently so did they, and it didn't involve me. So
if you are you thinking about are you ever going to go work for another department anywhere? Or?
I might. I've gotten since the documentary came out, I've gotten tons of job offers. Uh, a lot of some like actual like command staff positions. The issue is I'm in the process of moving, hopefully, to another part of the state. So I really don't want to hitch my wagon to anybody that I'm unable to commit to.
Right.
But once I'm settled in and I move, I'll probably join on with another agency wherever I wind up.
You going anywhere close to Orlando?
Uh, I'm looking at it's like the Port Charlotte area. So it's a couple still south of Orlando, but all the way on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So
Orlando is one of my favorite places to hang out. I love the Universal Studios is my place, man. I love that place.
yeah, I went a couple times as a little kid. I went to Disney as an adult, and I yeah didn't never really appealed to me.
I didn't like Disney either, really. But you had mentioned that you were propagandized. Like I was so and I wanted to be a cop myself, but I went, like I said, the opposite direction. I got into drugs and girls, and that kind of just, you know, took all my time and attention away from what I should be doing to, well, I'm having fun. But
Yeah,
I went the opposite direction, and now the older I get, I find myself like watching and learning and propagandizing myself sometimes. I
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm, no, no, continue. You were on a train of thought. I didn't want to
No,
interrupt. Go ahead.
I do watch like true stories, and I watch a lot of like your documentary is like right up my alley because I'm watching that kind of stuff all the time. And it's not, some people might call it propaganda, but I watch, all kinds of things, stories and entertainment, people. I do that not just for the entertainment value, but I do it to learn too. And that's something that like is kind of foreign to a lot of people is learning for the enjoyment of learning. And it seems like we didn't teach our kids, the younger generation, we taught them what to think, not how to think. And it's I think we're kind of seeing the consequences of that right now with all of the bullshit social media stuff and allowing them to be in their own echo chambers. And like you brought up touch some grass, and I hear that and I say it all the time because I see people, even when I'm interacting with them face to face, say things that are ridiculous, or believe things, or say that they believe things that are just like, wow, man, you really need to get outside more. And and it's happening with all age groups now, and I don't know what to do about it.
Uh, Electromagnetic pulse from Iran or Russia, or just turn off the internet for about a month. Let everybody figure it out. Turn off the electricity for a month.
Yeah,
Let natural run its course.
do you
But
remember a few months ago AT&T lost service? for
Yeah.
like a day. Oh man, I
Did you get
was
hit
I
from that?
did.
Oh
I
no.
did. It was
How
so
did
peaceful.
I was just about to ask, how did you survive?
I
But
so I have really good Wi-Fi at home,
yeah,
and I'm a stay-at-home dad. Been a stay-at-home dad for 10 years,
I
and
want to talk to you about that later because that might be some of my goals moving forward. But yeah,
hey, I absolutely. But you were getting ready to say something, and
yeah. So back to like when I say I was propagandized, like what I mean by that is that when we were growing up, cop movies were the shit.
buddy cop movies.
Buddy cop movies, whether you're talking about like Lethal Weapon or Beverly Hills Cop, the Police Academy, like Heat, like you name it, like that was my jam. Okay, and and it really, contrast that with today's generation. What is the representation of cops that these kids have? Cops are, like the way the media portrays the law enforcement, and the way social media treats these guys. Like, who in their right mind would want to go subject themselves to the treatment that some of these guys are getting?
Yeah,
So I'm hoping,
for 45 grand a year.
yeah, it's absurd, and and I think there's something to be said about that. I think it speaks about something in our culture, this nihilism and this failure to look forward to anything. I think there's just a whole lot of apathy, and I think I think storytelling in particular, because my brother and I, my goal is to make movies, from here on out. And if I could get one wish granted, I would love to get the rights to the Police Academy franchise and reboot it to have like all these woke, blue haired feminists and, whatever type of weird woke stuff is going on as all the recruits. But their story arc, they start there, but then they learn responsibility and they learn the value of, you know, like they, they find their hero's journey and they learn the value of responsibility and respect and dignity that has always been associated with this profession. That would be my dream. Okay.
That'd be a
And I
great
hope,
story.
yeah, no, no. And I think it's like, it's ripe for the picking. Somebody might steal it from me now, Universal or whoever owns the rights. But I think we need a renaissance of those types of stories because I think we're in a lot of danger right now about, the fact that nobody wants to do this job anymore. The applicants that you're getting are not, I mean, this is geographic. It depends on the region, I think. But if you look at like leftist cities and stuff like the caliber of cops that actually want to go into law enforcement over there, I can't imagine it's that high. And I fear that. Have you heard of the Miami River cops?
No.
Okay, so back during the cocaine cowboy days, there was a shortage at Miami Police Department of recruits. So they started lowering the standards and they started bringing in, people that can't remember if they were bringing in. Yeah, they were bringing in like refugees from Cuba and stuff like that. But long story short, a lot of these guys were not really cut out for the job. And what do you suppose happened? They started shooting up drug dealers and selling the dope and getting involved in all sorts. It was just a big mess. You should look into it one day. But the river cops, okay. And I fear that we are on the precipice of a brand new generation of river cops, just based on the fact that normal people that can see that had lived through 2020 and all the chaos. I think we need to make this job a lot more palatable for people. We need to pay cops more. We need to give them better benefits. Um, they we, we need to reinstill a competitive environment out there on the road. Just speaking from my experience, we need to kind of reignite that flame, and we need to inspire young people to be excited about this job again. And
I love that.
I don't know how I'm going to do that, but that is going to be my life's work moving forward.
Man, I feel similar with the military.
Yeah,
So I'm new to even liking law enforcement. So, back in my 20s, man, I was a rebel,
yeah,
and rebels don't like law enforcement, or they're not supposed to anyway. And but now I just since uh the George Floyd incident, I've really kind of taken a different stance on that. I don't agree with what happened to George Floyd, but I don't agree with burning the damn city down
of
either.
course,
So, um, one, two wrongs don't make a right kind of thing.
of course.
And I've changed my opinion on law enforcement quite a bit because I see where it's going. Like you said, and I see not only that, but I see a loss of control, you know, and I feel that way with the military because I watch a lot of geopolitics, and I watch um, a lot of stories, and I'm very very interested in history. I
Yeah,
love history, especially world history and conflict history, war history, military history, and so I kind of want to like help not help recruit for the military. That's kind of the wrong wording, but help tell those stories. Help tell like the stories of the good things that you can get out of the military, not just the PTSD and the shell shock, not all that stuff, but like the good things, like the experience and the leadership that you can get from it. And if you don't know what, let's just say you're an 18-year-old kid and you don't know what the hell you're going to do with your life, the military is a great backstop because they'll pay you to figure out what you want to do.
yeah,
And I do think that there needs to be serious reform, especially with pay. We need to like pay law enforcement a lot more because they're dealing with the worst of the worst every day. Even on the boring days, you still got to be suited up. So,
yeah.
and we've got to health insurance is a big one. We've got to take care of law enforcement and military with, invisible injuries, from mental trauma to, head injuries that are long lasting, TBI. Um, I agree that that would be incredibly neat to watch. Like right now on your YouTube channel, you got 6.4 thousand subscribers, 6,400 subscribers. It'd be neat. I've watched channels blow up from that many subscribers to 100,000, and that would be really neat to see with your channel. And I think you and your brother, man, with the production value you guys have, it's great. Like
Thank you very,
it,
very much.
you
That
guys have been doing it a while, haven't you?
Well, yeah, myself in particular, I kind of got into it before he did, and then kind of he caught the bug, and we both got like the gear acquisition syndrome. We started buying all the stuff. But yeah, my YouTube channel in particular, I started back in 2008, and I was just a little faceless guitar player making heavy metal remixes of pop songs and stuff like that. And like I never, you know, there, and I feel bad for like the 6,000 subscribers that I had before, like, because like, oh, is this going to be some cop channel now too? So I'm not sure how I'm going to navigate that, but yeah, I'm probably going to put more of this type of content on my channel, and
Well,
just
I think that you're at an inflection point with your channel that not you don't have to rebrand because like your name, it's just your name,
yeah,
and you won't have to rebrand. Just like some of your content is, I mean, it's already, you do have a video on here from the police. No, you don't. I thought that was, no, that's a different channel I was thinking of. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, I've kind of kept I've lived a double life of sorts with my YouTube and my police career. Obviously, that kind of the two kind of got married when I started working for doing the social media stuff with the department, and that was that I touch on that in the documentary. That was one of one of the highlights of my career was being able to really, because keep in mind, back in like 2020, they had shut down the show Cops. They shut down Live PD. They canceled Paw Patrol. Like we were public enemy
They
number one.
canceled Paw Patrol?
Yeah, you don't remember Chase got canceled?
No, I didn't. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. Okay, and but like I spoke to my command staff at the time. I said, hey, we can put on our own stuff. So we were doing like episodes of Cops, like things that we were handling at the. And it was great. It was really cool, and the community loved it. And I think I think it's catching on in a lot of other police departments. Like if it's not on video, it never happened. Or if you don't have a social media footprint, you don't exist. I think cops, police administrations in particular, everybody says, oh, we're transparent. We love transparency. Not really. From what I've seen, not really. But I genuinely do believe that like, and let me be clear. I think any dancing TikTok cops should be defunded. Okay. I think that is ridiculous. I think it's embarrassing. I think it's conduct unbecoming. And I think they should knock that off. That being said, however, social media is a very powerful tool for law enforcement. Okay.
Community
And
outreach, especially.
of course, in giving these people an understanding of what it is we're actually doing out there, because they see the cop, they see some cop like, I don't know, maybe he sat in a parking spot for too long, or maybe he ran through a red light and then he turned his lights on and then he turned them off, and people, oh, he just gets to. People don't understand the nuances of this job, and I think it's incumbent.
And I'm guilty of that myself.
Yeah, and I get it, and I've always kind of like explained to people that have this perception, oh, why do they do this? Well, they do this because of X, Y, and Z. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. And that's not a conversation that just the people that I've worked with, they hate having conversations like that. They feel like they can't relate to the normies. That they don't want to go to the dinner party because some guy's going to ask a stupid question about law enforcement. No, answer the stupid question, because it's that attitude that has gotten us to this this image failure that we're facing right now in this profession. Like one interaction at a time. Just talk to people. Say, hey, this is why we do that. And if you don't know, if you don't have a good explanation for it, hey, sometimes cops fuck up. So
Yeah.
that guy fucked that up. And like this whole concept I've heard this phrase, the blue wall of silence. Okay. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Yeah.
To the extent that has ever existed, and it hasn't existed for me. Okay. I'll be point blank. I've seen people do stupid things out there and then won stupid prizes. They had to take their medicine. Okay. But as far as like a blue wall of silence, well, with the exception of what happened to me, but we can get into that later, it doesn't exist anymore. If it ever existed, it definitely doesn't exist now. Everybody's wearing a body camera. Everything you say is going to be recorded, audio and visual. So the simple solution is do your job the right way.
Yeah.
Like that's what it comes down to.
So
And
we've got a young police force here because of so many rule changes and so many retirements and stuff. We get a very young police force here, but there's not enough of them. That's the problem. There's not enough of them, and they're spread so thin dealing with bullshit. You
yeah.
wouldn't believe the bullshit calls that I mean, obviously you would because you were a cop, but like, man, I hear sometimes, on social media, they have crime pages and stuff or whatever. And sometimes you'll see on those, or you'll hear on the scanner or whatever, like, a kid being disrespectful to their parents. And for some reason they got to call the cops for that. But like, what do
That's
they think? Is social work or what?
Well, essentially, yeah. Like, bro, you would not believe the type of calls that I've gotten called to. I got called one day because somebody was concerned about the welfare of the fish in a fish tank at a restaurant. Like, it doesn't stop. And that really comes down to first line supervision. Those types of calls, like when you call dispatch, they don't they have no discretion on what they put in most of the time. Okay. So you get a dumb call, dispatcher hears it. That sounds like a dumb call, but what can I do? She puts in the call. Okay. Once that call gets dispatched over the radio, it's that supervisor's responsibility to recognize whether or not that's a dumb call. And he has the discretion to cancel it. And I would cancel all sorts of dumb calls. Obviously, if it turns out not to be, that's your ass, and you're going to have to explain it if you try to cancel. So, make sure you know what you're canceling. But back during the COVID thing, oh, these people aren't staying 6 feet apart. Oh, this guy won't put his mask on. Oh, this guy, this guy said he wasn't vaccinated. Like, seriously?
And it's
Like, those,
really hard not to say, "Oh, grow up," and hang up the phone.
oh, I would, I mean, I say stop being a Karen, mind your business. If he's not
Yeah,
wearing a
so I've
mask,
I've actually called the non-emergency line here where I live,
yeah.
and they will talk to you like that on the non-emergency line.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I can only control my behavior. I can't control the behavior of every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Karen that wants to call and complain. But and I've always been respectful to everybody. And until you give me a reason not to, I am going to treat you like a human being. I'm going to be nice. In many cases, I'm going to probably be obnoxiously polite to the point where you don't know if I'm fucking with you or not. But that's just the type of person that I am. I always encourage my guys, kill them with kindness. Okay. Number one, because they hate it. Like they can't stand if they're screaming at you and you're taking it with a smile. They hate it. It drives them crazy. So do it. Okay. And the body camera, you have to conduct yourself as a professional. You ever watch? You ever listen to Jocko Willink's podcast?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's famous for a line about you can't fake bravery because if you fake bravery by doing the brave thing, it's still bravery. Have you heard him say that before?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the same is true for professionalism. You can't fake professionalism because if you're faking professionalism, you are still being professional. So I think it's the same concept too. And I try to instill that in the guys that I work with that look, it's a game in many cases. And you need to have thick skin. Like you need to check your ego at the door because people are going to try you all the time. Some people are going to pull your punk card. Some people that you're out there dealing with, like some of these First Amendment auditors and Second Amendment auditors, they will pull your punk card because they know the law better than you. And you're going to feel really, really silly when your face is on YouTube, acting like a tyrant and being made fun of. So
Yeah.
act accordingly, and like this is, in my mind, it's common sense stuff, like just go out there and do your job and be professional. But some people, particularly younger people, are incapable of making that connection. But what can you
Yeah,
do?
like the one incident with the young younger person with the burglary tools.
Yeah,
That incident, I don't know. I think that was weaponized incompetence. If you ask me, I think that was them pretending they didn't know that they should have made an arrest so that they didn't have to do paperwork.
yeah, that's probably what it was, which I'm fine with. Like,
If they were honest about it, like,
yeah,
oh,
like
okay, I get it, into the
yeah.
shift kind of deal.
But no, you wanted to have the entire roll call converge on me as it and gaslight me. A
And
bunch of rookies.
argue over nothing.
Yes, and try to say that I'm wrong and tell my administration that I'm forcing you to make an illegal arrest and violate somebody's Fourth Amendment right. Okay, they wanted to play that game. I'm sorry. Like, you don't get to ruin my reputation like that. I've got a pretty good reputation. I had a pretty good reputation over there. Okay, people knew who I was. They knew what I was all about. I was a hard worker. But you're gonna pull that on me? No, sorry. Now you're famous. How do you like that? Like, I never messed with anybody. People knew what they got with me. I've had supervisors that were dicks that I never wanted to emulate. So I've made a very conscious effort to be as reasonable as possible with these guys. And I make a very conscious effort to not have any enemies. But some people just couldn't help but making me their enemy. And for the life of me, I don't know why. I don't know what I ever did to anybody to make them feel that way, but you saw the fallout from what happened.
I mean, I really also love that you still have that love for law enforcement and your brothers and your sisters. I really admire that. And my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, is a former police officer in Tennessee, and he had to not be a police officer anymore, and he got his badge and his flag, or a flag and his badge number tattooed on his bicep. And when you were telling the story about, be professional, even if you nauseatingly so, whatever, they love, they hate that shit. It reminds me of my brother-in-law because he's like that. He's a big giant guy, 6'8", like 250-ish pounds. So he's a
Wow.
big fella.
I
And
would love that on my shift. We could have used him, but
yeah,
yeah,
so he's one of those type of guys where he will smile, while you're yelling in his face, and just be nice and professional and try to be as helpful as possible. And sometimes it is entertainment or whatever, but most of the time that was his way of coping, I guess.
I mean, well, I'll talk about what you said about my love for this job. And look, every job is going to have its ups and downs, its pluses and its minuses, but people need to take like a 10,000-foot overview of the importance of this job, because this is the glue that's holding civilization together. Okay. Look at Haiti right now. Look at the failed state that has become of Haiti because people aren't doing this job, or they failed at doing this job. That could be us. That could be Miami. That could be, you know, California. That could be Seattle. It was Seattle. Look, think about the grand scheme of things and what we're facing in our culture right now.
I think
So
a good analog for that would be San Francisco right now.
I would agree. I would agree. And we need to talk about the reality of this job. We are agents of chaos mitigation, okay? And we have to run around and fix all these little problems, but that is the nature of the job. And it's the most important job in the world. Like, I'm convinced that is the most important, and people don't know what they got till it's gone.
Yeah.
And I think what we're facing now in this job, like in my roll calls, and I watch these young guys when I talk about this stuff, and it all goes over their head, or they give me the fluoride stare, and they, like, you can tell it's not like really clicking with them. And oh, there he goes again. He's being all dramatic, but like, really think about it. Derek Chauvin, do you think he woke up in the morning, brushed his teeth, put his vest on, and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna provoke an international incident. I'm gonna start a global revolution today by, in like, you can debate whether or not what he did was justified based on what I've seen, based on his own training manual at his department and subsequent information that's come out. It looks like he was completely justified. But put all that aside, whether you think he was right and wrong or what he did, do you think he woke up in that morning and said, "Yeah, I'm going to spearhead a global uprising and revolution against my profession"? Of course he didn't.
Yeah,
But
I don't think he woke up that day even wanting to do any harm at all.
probably not. And most of us don't. Okay. Believe it or not, most of us do not go around looking to pick fights, hurt people, ruin people's lives. And the ones that do, those of us that do that kind of silly bullshit, they pay the price for it. And good, because We are our own worst enemies. And I hate dirty cops more than I hate the most hardened criminal because they ruin it for everybody. But that's how important this job is. And people lose sight of that. Cops lose sight of that. They get complacent. They don't see the big picture. They see Sergeant picking on me, saying I didn't do my night eyes and my footprints and my watch orders, and he's on my ass. No, man, I am literally trying to hold civilization together. It is essentially what it comes down to. This cop writing traffic tickets at an assigned area because they have a higher than average traffic crash. They've done the data. This particular intersection is having more traffic crashes. It's having more fatalities. What do? We enforce it. We enforce it until it fixes the problem. And then we fix that problem. We move on to the next. That is what this job is all about. And a lot of people that I work with, they think I'm crazy, or that I used to work with, they think I'm crazy when I talk about the big picture idea. But I think that's what it's all about. Like, you brought up people being motivated by money in this job. And obviously, look, I'm not some Gandhi Buddhist that said, "Oh, I don't need money." But money was never my primary motivator.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think that's indicative of like, that's something that we can all say, like, and that be the truth that there's not a cop out there that got into the job for the money.
and it's like, obviously the money is important. You need money to survive. But I would have done that, like, when I got hired and I got that badge pinned on my chest. That was the most important day of my life. And if you told me I had to do it for free, I would have been like, yeah, okay. Like, that's how important that was to me back then. That's gone today. Well, for a lot of them, not all of them. There's some great cops that are coming up now, but they're contending with peers that are not the best. And I think that's whatever.
You ever seen that movie, The Dirty Dozen?
I that's a Clint Eastwood movie,
I,
or
I,
or
it's
no?
so, it's Lee Marvin, and it's a story about, like, it's a Hollywoodized, bastardized version of a story about a guy named Jake McNeese, and he was a rebel in the military, and he was kind of like you were describing, like, he didn't do it for the money. They busted him down in pay several times, and he still kept going on the most dangerous of missions because that's what he was good at. That's what he came to do, and he was fighting for his country. And it's very similar to what you were saying.
Yeah, and look, I was in the twilight of my career, and going back to what we spoke about earlier, this widespread institutional apathy. The people in my generation, they had no fight in them left anymore. They're like, oh, I just need to get my numbers for my pension, then I'm going to retire. Like, that is everybody's goal. Even the young guys. What's your goal? Oh, retire. Get out of this place. Resign, go to a better agency. That's a problem. And nobody else seemed to want to sound the alarm about that problem and what it's going to take to fix that place. I didn't want to be the guy who had 20 years on saying, "Oh, I'm just trying to get my numbers right. I gotta work X, Y, and Z longer to get my multiplier up to this and that, or however the pension system works." Look, man, I collect peanuts for my pension. That, yeah, thank God I have a roof over my head, but I drive a 35-year-old pickup truck that I've built myself. I've never been motivated by the money. And part of that is because I've been in debt before when I was a young cop. doing all the stupid rookie stuff, like going out and buying a $90,000 AMG Mercedes Benz and getting this luxury apartment in this nice neighborhood. Yeah, I made some really dumb decisions, and that kind of like scared me straight and put the fear of God in me.
We're
And
simpatico, man.
yeah, it's like once you have debt collectors, breathing down your neck, you're like, ooh, this kind of sucks. So I made sacrifices in my life, and dude, I love my life. Like this is my dream, is to you know like just have my place, work on my car, have a beautiful girlfriend, talk to people like you, like this. I've got it made. So
Oh yeah.
as bad as things were for me towards the tail end of my career, I won. All right, because I put myself in a position to to be a winner. But a lot of these guys, they play this game, they get in these high positions. Biggie Smalls said it: "More money, more problems." Wait, was that Biggie Smalls? Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, you develop this taste for the finer things in life, and the last thing you want is to lose that. You don't want to lose your ability to have the biggest house in the nicest neighborhood or buy the fanciest car. I couldn't care less about that stuff, man. Like,
I
and
just want to be all right.
yeah, I just want to be chill. That's it. Leave me alone. Let me do the things let me play my music. Let me let me scroll through YouTube. Let me work on my truck. Like, that's it.
Hell yeah. That's the real American dream right there.
100%.
Yeah, I think a lot of people lose sight of that because they are captivated by the expensive cars and the nice places and you saying you drive a 35-year-old pickup that you built yourself. I have a 20-year-old hand-me-down in the driveway. It's leaking oil all over the place and somebody asked me, "Are you going to get that fixed?" And I'm like, "I don't have to change oil. I and all that stuff. And
Well,
no, I'm not going to fix it."
just so you know, if it's leaking oil, that means it still has oil, so you're good.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. That's a good way to look at it.
yeah,
And they asked me if I was going to fix it, and I'm like, "Nah, it was a free car. I'm not gonna spend all that money fixing it up when I could just go out and replace it for 2 grand. I
exactly.
value things differently. And when I was younger, I would have been like, oh yeah, I just can't wait till it blows up so I can go out and buy a brand new one. And at this point, I'm like, how much a brand new car costs? You know how much the payment on that would be? I
Yeah,
don't want all that. And
yeah,
I'm just glad to have something that runs.
yeah. I mean, if you're able to live within your means, you are rich. You know, like if you're able to feed yourself, feed your family, you have a family that loves you, and you're able to live your life. That is, like you said, it is the American dream.
And
And
you wanted to talk about being a stay-at-home dad.
yes, tell me about that. That sounds like quite the arrangement that you have.
Yeah, it sucks sometimes, but it's the
Does it?
most rewarding thing I've ever done. It's a challenge because I get burnout real easy, and um, the kids. My kids are. I'm more like a free range parent. I allow them to make their own mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Like not anything dangerous, like sticking their finger in the light socket or anything like that. But that's a good example of like how we do things around the house is we most generally, like if they're climbing on top of furniture or whatever, we'll allow that to happen, because if they fall. So here's a good one. So my oldest is 21, my youngest is 5.
Goodness gracious! Wow.
Yeah. My 5-year-old is level 2 autistic, so he's challenging one sometimes, but he is verbal and he's a wild kid. His name is Rocket, and he
His
was
name actually,
his name is actually Rocket.
I love that so much. That's so cool. Wow.
So the way I came about being a stay-at-home dad was kind of like a situation where I was in underground construction for 8, 9 years, something like that. And I was out on the road a lot. And I was gone Monday through Friday, working 12 hours, 14 hours a day, working my ass off, and I missed out on a lot. Well, towards the end of that, in January of 2013, man, I was just burnt out. I hadn't been on vacation or anything, long hours. The boss could tell my heart wasn't in it, and he was just looking for excuses to fire me. And there towards the end, he did fire me. And I went home. I dealt with depression for a while, and I told my wife, I was like, I just want to take a break and not work for a little bit because I missed out on so much with the kids. At that time, I was like 450 pounds, and it was really rough on me. I couldn't get around as well as other people. And those 6 months that I was off, I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I ballooned up to like 520 pounds, and I couldn't move, man. I just couldn't. I felt like I was sitting around waiting to die.
Yeah.
But I was in a spot where nobody'd hire me. Nobody'd take me on as I was a liability. And so my wife had this, my wife and I had a discussion like she's wanting to go back to school and further her career. And at that time, my income, my ceiling for the income that my earning potential was pretty low. I was a high school dropout. I do have my GED, but high school dropout. I'm skilled, but again, I was 500 pounds. And so she decided that she wanted to go back to school. And I was like, great, I'm all for that. And she's like, but I'm going to need you to stay home while I'm at school. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to tell me twice. I'll be willing to do all that. And so I became a stay-at-home dad. And it wasn't permanent. I'd had no intentions on it being permanent. I was just going to go back to work when I was physically capable to do so. In 2018, my wife came to me and she's like, I'm pregnant. And I said, you're what? And she's like, I'm pregnant. We had discussed for a couple of years that we didn't want any more children because we love traveling. And so she's like, how are we going to do this? And I was like, well, you know, we'll figure it out. No worries. Inside I'm panicking inside my head or whatever, but I couldn't let her know that. And so at that point, we decided being a stay-at-home dad was going to be permanent, and I officially retired. Now I'm a business owner, but I'm not making any money with that either. So, uh, um, it was very difficult to deal with mentally because there's those social stigmas of you being a man and you got to be a provider, you got to take care of your family. I saw that as financial. What
Yeah.
I do now is I provide for my family in a different kind of way. I am a provider, but it's a care provider. I care for everyone in my life. I do laundry, I do dishes, not so often I don't do dishes, but I still do them. Um, I clean the house, take care of the bills. I do the dad thing, anytime the kids need somebody to talk to or something's bothering them, they can come to dad, and like my two older children, I got one 21-year old and one 20-year old, and they're out of the house and they come to me for guidance all the time. But in 2021, I had weight loss surgery and changed my life. I'm down to 240 pounds.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I am so active, it's ridiculous. Like here in the last few weeks, I haven't been because the kids are home for spring or for summer break, and we don't have any money. We're broke. So it's hard to get outside of the house and do things without the car. And, we try to do as much as we can, but it's ultimately, living paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes that happens. But yeah, it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. And people, you had mentioned before, like if you're doing the things that you want to do in life, you are rich,
Yep.
and that's essentially what on a daily basis. Like my wife's having to grind it out a lot at work. She's having to work a lot of long hours and stuff, but that was I think that will ease up in time because right now inflation is really killing us.
Yeah.
Without the inflation, we weren't struggling at all. We were thriving. So that comes in waves. I think we'll get over that. But it's a great job for real. If like do you have any kids?
No, I'm practicing.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
You plan on it do you plan on having any kids?
I would like to. I think that's the meaning of life. And, I've kind of put it off. Like my career was my child, for the last, better part of 20 years. So I had just been putting it off, putting it off. Some relationships came and went, and it was just never. I was never able to pull the trigger. But I kind of developed this idea. You know, I mean, obviously you make plans and God laughs, but I had planned on finishing my 20th year and then retiring, not doing the drop, probably going to another place. And then I was going to be in a better position to start a family. Obviously, that kind of got kickstarted a whole lot sooner. And now I'm talking about moving. I have my long-term girlfriend that we're taking the next steps. We both want a family eventually. But I had always, especially over the last couple of years, seeing what's going on in some of the public school systems and things like that, I decided that if I'm going to have kids, I'm gonna homeschool them. And I was homeschooled for a large chunk of my schooling. Obviously my mom was you know, a published scientist and very smart, so probably a lot smarter than me. So I'm gonna have to figure some things out. But I decided, if I have money coming in from a pension and I can do like some part time work here and there to pick up the slack, that I would really consider trying to do as much of a stay at home role as possible, just so I am able to raise some well adjusted kids, because I hear
That's what
horror
it's all
stories.
about, man. That's
Yeah,
what it's all about.
I hear horror stories from friends of mine who have kids, young kids, and teenagers that are dealing with, and that could be just a South Florida phenomenon, but like you ever listen to Michael Malice?
No. No.
No, well, he's an internet personality, but he said he gave a quote one day, and he said that public school is often the only place where children will ever experience some type of violence in their life, and it's true. Some of these schools are out of control, and obviously, I'm not going to have money to send kids to private school or anything like that. I'm not planning on having that type of money. But yeah, so my girlfriend and I were seriously discussing the merits of homeschooling or like a homeschooling co-op type of thing. So that's why hearing from you, I wanted to hear your take on it, and I kind of see it as a similar way. And I look, we've
So
reached a point.
we do public school
Yeah,
just to throw that out there. And the reason why is for socialization because like um I'm not a very good educator. I am in the sense that I can teach them everything about life that they need to know roughly. I can't show them how to build a house or anything because I don't even know how to do that. But I can teach them some skills, but the most important thing to me is teach them how to think, and the rest of it I don't really give a shit about. Like as far as math goes, as long as they know the basics, I don't care. As long as they can learn a trade, I don't care. I need my kids to be productive members of society. I need them not to drag society down, but lift society up.
of
And
course.
it's very difficult to straddle that line for me because I like the name of the show is Coffee with Bearded Bad Dad. And the reason why I have that moniker is because like I've been accused of being a bad dad a lot because of some of the things that I do. It's not I'm not a perfect parent by any means, and I don't really generally give a shit what my kids learn as long as they learn how to be people and how to be social and how to love one another. And I think violence is a part of that. I think they need to see some of that violence. I think they need to experience things. Then that goes along with honest parenting with me. I don't shelter the kids from anything. The drugs, my sister was a drug addict or is a drug addict, recovering drug addict for a long time. And I could have easily just said, no, you don't need to see her. I'm like, no, kids, look, this is what happens when you get on dope.
Yeah.
And there is I think that's very important to show kids. And I'm a very big proponent uh, for public or private schools and homeschooling because public school does not teach the kids how to think.
No,
They teach them what to think.
and yeah, they're still preparing kids for factory work for the industrial revolution, and it's like that is like a tired cliche at this point, but it's still true. And the things I'm hearing about, like common core this and pronouns that, and like I just that's not something I'm ever going to get on board with,
Yeah.
because and like again, I mentioned the fact that my parents were both university professors. I mean, my mom has since passed. She passed in 2020. But my dad will be the first to tell you that the institution of education, particularly in universities, is not what it used to be. And a lot of that is like a supply and demand problem. You've overcrowded the supply, and now everybody's getting rubber stamped with their degree, and they can't find any jobs that have any association with the degree that they got it. So
And
they're
that
pouring.
also goes along with what we were talking about earlier with the fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people with degrees that don't deserve the job that they have.
Well, yeah. And obviously that's a problem, but we have this outdated credentialist system that really, you know, it is really no longer fit for purpose. Like you look at the tech industry, who gets hired at, like, if you're doing a startup, you know, you're going to want the guy that's like on the latest like information on coding and Python or whatever, JavaScript, like whatever is the latest in that. You can't go into, you know, technology with your degree from 4 years ago when all the information has changed.
Yeah.
Everything's been leapfrogged. Obviously, if you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor. Yeah, you gotta jump through some hoops and stuff like that. But I think the brick and mortar institution itself is what's changing, and I think we are going to see. I'm predicting that we're going to see us move away from a credentialist system into like a merit based kind of competency entrance requirements for a lot of companies, because let's face it, a lot of the people that are coming out with degrees are coming out dumber than when they first went in because of some of the nonsense that they're learning in school. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Completely ignoring 3,000 years worth of history.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You've heard of Chesterton's fence?
No. What could you
Is
explain
a
that?
philosophical it's like a philosophical allegory for, you see a fence in the woods and you have no idea what its purpose is, and you think it's kind of stupid, like it's just here by itself. You remove that fence at your own peril, because the people who put it there probably had a very good reason for putting it there. It's we ignore the experiential wisdom from generations before us, and we all want to be pioneers, and we want to usurp the old ways of doing things without understanding why they were put that way to begin with. And I often tell, like with my guys, I tell people that tradition is the solution to the problems that we forgot about in many cases. So, and a lot of people are figuring that out. Look, institutions across the world are figuring that out. That some of these things that may have been seen as antiquated, and you want to shake things up and fight the patriarchy and like do whatever you need to do to bust down doors
And
and
like, yeah, you guys aren't, this isn't new ways of thinking here. This has already been done. This has been thought about. It just happened to be, a couple hundred years ago now. We're not in a new place in history. This has all been done before, brother. And that's, I think, a lot of people need to understand that when they go out there and especially young kids looking for a purpose or looking for a place to belong and getting into, like protests or a certain cause that may not have a defense, like not a defensible cause. I think that a lot of that just comes from they saw the generation before them do the same things, but they had the generations before them actually had a legitimate complaint, you
yep,
know? And these things that they're bitching about now has nothing to do with them. They don't know anything about the things of like the George Floyd protests. Like they burnt down that city before any investigations had been done.
yeah,
It was all at that point he said, she said, and the camera, like, no, footage doesn't lie, but it can be edited. And the media showed the people exactly what they wanted to show the people. They didn't show the whole thing.
yep. And the politicians and the police administrators allowed it to happen.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
what's worse than that is you had collectively as a nation these other police administrators posing in photo ops, getting down on one knee, raising their hand up in the air. You know, that did so much damage institutionally among the rank and file because we all knew that it was bullshit. And like when COVID was going on, oh, you can't leave your apartment, but you can go protest because racism is a public health emergency. Get the fuck out of here! Like we know what you're doing. Like the damage that was done to the morale in this profession is going to take generations to fix
Yeah.
because of the incompetence of our leaders. People that look, cowardice itself is a fireable offense in law enforcement. And political cowardice, in my opinion, is arguably worse than you running away from a guy with a gun.
Yeah,
We
I
have
agree.
cowards in charge of our police departments right now that sway whichever way the wind blows because they care too much about their pension. They
Yeah.
don't have the balls to tell their council, their commissioners, or their mayors, "Hey, no, this is bullshit, and I'm not going to do that. You want to fire me? Fine, peace. I'll
I
see you
think
on Fox."
that's I think that's the thing with the millennial generation. I think we're getting tired of it, bro. Like I think I saw a chart the other day. I can't remember where I saw it, but like there was the generation that fought World War II and then a decline in uh status of where we see ourselves as a generation, and then it goes back up with millennials. We're right back up there with the hero generation. Like we're going to have to be the heroes. And I see a lot of people our age like looking back in time and saying, "Holy shit, what the hell happened there?" And then looking forward in time and being like, "Oh my God, we're doing it again."
Yep.
I can I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody other than my age group that really thinks like me. So I
I've
know
seen I've seen some promising developments in the Zoomers. You brought up the generational thing. Have you read The Fourth Turning? Because
no.
you brought up like the hero generation. You're bringing up like
I think that may be what I'm
yeah.
referring to.
Neil Howe wrote a book called The Fourth Turning, and it's a complex theory, but it basically talks about how there's like 80-year cycles
Yeah.
uh, in generations, and it's a predictable pattern. Um, but yeah, I think they said that we are on the like the hero generation. Like we're basically at like at our point in time, we're waiting for the Franz Ferdinand shot, to start the next giant conflict, and
We
that it's going
almost
to
had
usher.
that. We almost
Oh
had
yeah,
that Saturday.
100%. And you brought up people our age. You look at who he picked as his VP now. He's our age. JD
Yeah.
Vance is our age, and if you listen to him talk, he would fit right into this conversation that we're having right now. So I think it's a very promising development. I don't care where people line up politically, but it's
Yeah,
clear that
I don't even know if I agree with his politics, just knowing how old he is, knowing his age and that
where he came from.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. And then Trump called him and was like, "Hey, I need you." And JD Vance was like a couple of years ago, he wasn't a big Trump fan, and Trump said, "I need you. I need your help."
yeah,
And at 39 years old, I think he'll be 40 this year. Uh, he's stepping up and willing to help lead our country. And man, we need that. We need that. We don't all have to agree. We don't all have to, we don't even have to like each other, man. We just have to live with each other. And that's the
yep,
bottom line. And we can disagree while being nice. We can disagree and move forward and figure out a common ground. And I see a lot of things playing out in and I talk about this all the time. I think World War III has already started. And
yeah, yeah. I
I
would agree with
see
that.
I see a lot of things worldwide that just are not good. I see a lot of things that start like World War II started just like this, you know, and that was 80 years ago. And I resonate quite a bit more with the generations coming up during that time as far as being tired of the shit politically, being tired of ran through the dirt, man. I'm broke and there's no reason to be. I work my ass off, man. Like
Yeah,
I am a stay-at-home dad, but my wife has a side gig that we do at night and we both do it. And we work our ass off, man, and we can't get ahead and stay ahead and we're all tired of it. We're tired. And that goes back to what you were saying about law enforcement and the younger generations coming up. They see this shit, man. They are living it. You can't buy a house, right? They can't afford a house. My kids can't even afford their rent and their car insurance at the same time. My son, he's 20. I don't know how much my daughter's rent is, but my 20-year-old son, his rent is $1,200 a month. And at a job making like 15 bucks an hour, he'd bring home like $1,600 a month. Well, his car insurance is $300 a month. So that gives him what, 100 bucks a month to live on? Like it's not sustainable. And
no,
that's the world that our parents, not us, not you and I, not Generation X. It was the world that our parents built for us.
yep. The
And
boomers, and they're the first ones to tell you, oh, in my age or in my day, I only got 50 cents an hour. Yeah, yeah, but you bought your house for twelve
twelve
dollars
hundred
and
bucks.
and now they laud these their $5 million properties over. Oh yeah, you just need to work harder. You need to pull up your. That's arrogance that only the boomers are capable of. And I have these conversations with them. They call this generation lazy and entitled. And yeah, it is to some extent lazy and entitled. Okay, and a lot of these guys are, they have this. They're obviously more decadent. They're obviously have more of like this YOLO. kind of lifestyle. But that's completely reasonable because you know who else did? The Weimar Republic when everything was coming down. Okay, because they see it's hopeless for people. It's hopeless for young people. So what do? They become nihilistic. They say, I don't give a shit, whatever. I'm gonna still live with my parents. I'm gonna who needs a job? What's the point? I can't afford to move out anyway. So I
Yeah.
get it, and I think you get it too. And that's a sickness that this country is like we are on the precipice of collapse. And not enough people are talking about this.
It really warmed my heart to hear you say good things about generation the Zoomers. It really warmed
Oh
my
no,
heart because I see a lot of promise in them too. I think they're going to change the world.
yeah, I think we're gonna help them too. And I think the boomers are gonna, get sent off. They're gonna get sent off out into the sunset, and we're gonna have to clean up a lot of the messes that they made. Um, but yeah, man, I get it, and I saw it like when I was working with the younger guys. And, dude, it's tough, man. It's tough, not just for cops too, man. Like cops, like bro, Al Bundy was able to sell shoes and he had a stay-at-home wife and a giant house. Like the
Yeah.
American dream is dead, and nobody gives a fuck. And
Yeah.
like I really hate that. I hate the condescension from the boomers that just think it's like a work ethic problem. No, it's not. It goes a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
And
It most certainly does, man. This conversation right here, I don't even know how to I don't even know how to thank you for this conversation because it's like, yes, man, I feel that. I
yeah,
feel I'm scared for I'm 39 years old and I just bought my first house in January. And
congratulations, by the way. That's great.
thank you. Thank you. It's a hell of an accomplishment that I'm afraid that my kids will never see that. I'm afraid because like if my son, he's 20 years old right now, he's got 19 years to be where I'm at and be able to afford his own place. He's in a lot worse shape than I was when I was his age, and my rent was only $425 for a comparable place, and that has ballooned up for the exact same apartment I was living in when he was born. It's $800 a month. It was $400 a month when we lived there. And it's the same apartment. Nothing's changed.
Yeah,
It's not even nicer. It's dirtier. It's it's terrible how much things cost now, and the wages aren't meeting that. It's I don't know what to I can't right now. Like 4 years ago, I was able to exist and thrive on what we bring home. Like we did not need our second job.
yeah,
Right now, we need our second job. And I
yeah.
don't know what to do.
And it's a snake eating its own tail too, because the more the Federal Reserve just keeps printing dollars out of thin air, and the more like people don't. It's not just a money problem. It's not giving minimum wage workers $25 an hour. That's not going to fix this problem because guess what? They're going to get $25 an hour, and then that hamburger that you get with fries at Burger King is going to be $35 an hour. So, or it's going to be like a $35 meal. So
Yeah.
these things are not. There's not the equilibrium itself is broken, and the only way that you're going to fix that is, I mean, obviously it's going to be a contentious political opinion that I don't know how your audience feels about that, but the people that need to be in charge know how to fix it, and we need to allow them to fix it
Yeah.
because it's not being fixed right now, and there's no ending in sight based on this political machine that's been going on. There's no sign that it's going to get any better.
Man, I think that'd be a great place to leave this conversation for now. I don't this was such a great conversation, Karl. I appreciate you and thank you for your service, man. And I
Sure.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share. Thanks, Karl.
Thank you guys.